Hello and welcome to Mother Tongue, the podcast where modern motherhood meets real life. I'm Marianne, founder, podcast host, and mum of three, and I created this space for all the mums who are juggling it all. From toddlers and tantrums to businesses and burnout, we're talking about what it actually takes to build a life, a career, and a family all at once. Here, you'll hear honest, unfiltered conversations with founders, freelancers, experts, and everyday mums about work, wellness, identity, mental health, relationships, and everything we carry that no one talks about. Hit follow, join our community, We Are Mother Tongue, and tune in for real talk that supports the whole you, because modern motherhood is busy and no one should do it all alone.
We are so incredibly excited to welcome Helen Farmer back to Mother Tongue.
I know. So much has changed since I was here, from the location to life stages.
I know. As you said, how old are yours now?
9 and 11. I am in the pre-teen situation and I'm learning a lot.
So I want to touch a lot about this today because obviously a lot of what we have talked about traditionally in the past has been small kids. I have small kids and so many mums have always messaged me and been like, are you ever going to do anything on like teenagers or preteens? And I'm like, we really probably do. But I think also sometimes like ignorance is bliss. And I'm a bit like, we're not there yet.
I think it's really interesting because I think we have this common misconception that a lot of the parenting problems happen in the early years.
Yes.
And then there's this kind of sweet spot, which I confess is true, that I'm in now.
Okay,
and then
love this.
There's this worry about the teenage life. But what I'm realising as a parent is that they need you in different ways as they get older. And when they're in the early years, it is about sleeping through the night. It's about the breastfeeding and the bottles and the sterilisation and the gear and the strollers and the carrying and I guess around the physicality
much more
of it all. Whereas now when I have girls, it's a lot more about, that might be some hormones kicking in, or I know she wants to talk to me about something, but I need to make sure that that conversation is always going to be open. And these kind of preteen years, I guess, is a lot around that foundation building for the teenagers to make sure that they can come to me and say the things that I might not like, or they can come to me for advice, or they just talk to us. But in some ways, they need me more.
For sure.
And what's actually really lovely, and what I'm very grateful for, is that they want to spend time with us, which is probably not going to be the case in 2 years. So what I would say to anyone who is maybe worried about that next stage is it's actually really lovely. They get a bit more interesting. We can watch the same TV shows and we like the same music. And they still have those why questions, but they also have their own answers and their own opinions too. Yeah. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm kind of pleading this fleeting moment to remain a bit more with the preteen years. So don't be afraid. But I would say buckle up as well.
I'm excited, but this was one of the main reasons why we pivoted with Mother Tongue, because historically we always focused mostly on the child. So we talked a lot about breastfeeding and, weaning and a bit about mental health, but it was all kind of really focused on those early years. And what I've come to realise is motherhood, modern motherhood, regardless of the stage you are in, how old your kids are, it all feels the same. This kind of overwhelm, the stress, the burden that we feel as essentially working mums. Everyone either has a side hustle now, they're working for someone else, they're working for themselves, or they're a stay-at-home mum, which is so much more of a full-time job now than it ever used to be.
It's interesting because it's just a different source of stress and pressure sometimes.
Sure.
And whether that is the elusive work-life balance, which, spoiler alert,
there isn't,
and I certainly haven't nailed it. Or is it this sense of identity? Or it's this sense of how can I be all things to all people and still have my own friends and interests and this pressure to exercise and have hobbies and it doesn't get any easier, it just evolves. So I think it is really interesting that you are evolving with that parenting journey and understanding that there are amazing people that you can pull in at different stages of your life and your evolution of motherhood. And some of that will be around mental health, some of it might be around the practical side, and to get people to be quite honest about those different struggles and what's in their toolkit. So it's a good one.
Well, you are now, as you said, 9 and 11 at the age of your kids. You've been doing this so-called juggle for a long time because you are a big dog in the radio space. Before that, you were a journalist. You've written books. You've done it all in that space. And it's intense. It's not like you can have an off day. So how do you do this all?
I think about this a lot. And I think about the teachers who are listening. I think about the people who are customer facing or with patients. And you can't really have an off day. There are days where I get up and I know I'm on the radio every single afternoon, and sometimes I'm just not in the mood. I'm not. However, what I've found is, luckily I love my team and I love what I do, is that sometimes the guests and the momentum and the conversations will perk me up, and I'll have a great show and then I'll come home and crash. And I carry a lot of guilt around that sometimes, and I feel like I give my best self to other people, and often strangers and listeners, and then I come home and I haven't got much in the tank for those that I love. So that is something that I'm trying really, really hard to work on. But to be totally honest, I am a workhorse. Like, I get a huge amount of satisfaction and gratification and value and identity, rightly or wrongly, from being productive and working and showing up and learning and connecting. I really do.
So do I.
And I think I'm really hard on myself about that. I'm like, I don't really know how to relax. So again, rightly or wrongly, working is a big part of my identity, and I'm very, very lucky to have found something that I really, really enjoy. Do I have it in the tank all the time? No. And what I've started to realise over the years is that we shouldn't necessarily tie our value to our productivity, because it's just not realistic. We can't be productive all the time.
No.
When we think about patterns in nature, we think about wintering. Beautiful book, by the way, if you want to read up on kind of this idea of having seasons of rest. So you can come out of a season of rest to be more productive and more creative. But I would say, especially in Dubai, we have this, rise and grind, hustle culture, need to be productive, need to be on, need to network, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I've got to be very conscious of going, actually, tonight I don't really want to go out, or I'm going to cancel that, or I'm going to say no, because I don't want to burn out, like so many people do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, look, we're going to come on to the ADHD, because everything that you've just said is definitely not helped by the ADHD diagnosis.
100%.
And I feel that. And it's been a massive process to be extremely strict with the boundaries that I put in place to essentially protect myself, and also to protect the way I parent.
Well, it's interesting because we think about boundaries as being this very negative thing about saying no all the time, and we think about putting boundaries in place with other people, and that might be a boss or a partner or a colleague. But I think the hardest thing is putting boundaries in place for yourself.
Yeah.
Going, right, phone's going away now, or I need this, I need that. And boundaries, through a lot of conversations with psychologists over the years through the radio, it's much more positive to think about them as being an understanding and a meeting place, rather than a hard no, and there's an inflexible wall.
No, I agree with that.
But it's harder to put them in place with yourself and other people.
But also boundaries in place with essentially my family, because I think I'm seeing a lot at the moment about this the style of parenting where essentially your kids come along with you. You don't change your life for your kids. Your kids are part of your life. So they come to the supermarket with you. If you've got to run an errand, they come with you. There's also, over the last couple of years, been this big emphasis on parenting where essentially you give everything to your child. They are your world. They are the center of your universe, which, let's be honest, they are, but also you should not have to give everything to anybody. What an unrealistic expectation you're setting to the child. But there is this thing inside of you as a parent where you feel the urge to be like that.
Yeah, I think it's very human to want to make our children's lives easier, to take away the pain, to fix things. I mean, it's funny thinking there about, taking your kids everywhere. I think back to weekends when I was growing up. We weren't going to like the theme parks and the soft plays, and it wasn't 3 activities and a party every weekend. It was, we are going to go to the supermarket, you're going to come to the garden centre, we're going to go for a walk in the woods, and you're going to go to grandma's house for Sunday dinner. I don't care if you don't want to come. And I think what's interesting to think, I've probably used the word boundaries around my kids too many, and now they weaponise it against me. So
love it.
They'll say things like, can you please read me another chapter? That's my boundary. I'm like, that's not a boundary, that's a preference, you rat.
Exactly.
I think there is this kind of weaponization of kind of psychology talk. To my mind, my big parenting philosophy is you've just got to do your best and do the best with what you've got in that moment, be that information or energy, resources, whatever. And also, you are not your child's friend. You are their parent.
Yeah.
And I think about my two top jobs as a parent. So my 2 priorities are, 1, keeping them safe.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. Online, that's obviously a big conversation
Yeah.
that's coming our way over the next few years. When we're thinking about younger children, putting seatbelts and car seats, if they say no, I don't care.
No.
My number one job is keeping you safe. But also now as we get into those preteen years, it's all about building their self-esteem.
Yeah.
It is all about giving them the confidence and resilience to say no to peer pressure, to say no when it comes to phone use, to feel confident to explore other new things and walk into a room or a club or a class and feel like they've got something to offer and they're an asset to any space. So my big things are, I'm not my daughter's friends. We have a great relationship, but it is a parent-child role.
And can I ask around that, how are you doing that? Because this is actually, something that we don't need to think about right now, but the baby is still a blob, so it's too early to say. But my two children, my elder two children, are incredibly different. I have a very anxious, sensitive, cautious elder child.
Very deep feeling.
Very deep feeling. And I mean, to the point where my husband took him to a birthday party on the weekend of his best friend, who lives near here, but he didn't know any of the other kids, so he didn't want to get involved. He's very scared. My daughter, bull in a china shop.
Second born, classic.
So strong-willed, so independent, but I really want to try and fuel his confidence, and building the confidence and the self-esteem. It's such an important piece, but I don't want to push it. So how do we do this?
You can't push it. To my mind, it is just understanding exactly as you said that all children are different. They're all in their own timeline. Whether you want to, I'm certainly not talking about your individual child, but in general parenting terms, trusting your instinct. Would a diagnosis or would there be occupational therapy? Would some kind of support be helpful for them or for you? Maybe. Or what I find is just a lot of one-on-one time of making them feel heard. We use books a lot and have done that since they were tiny to broach tricky conversations. So there's a lovely one that we've been reading about being a little bit shy, and it's basically normalizing anxiety. And I think a lot of kids and adults don't understand that everyone else has this inner dialogue, that other people have these doubts and these anxieties and these worries about going to a party, about starting a new job, about going to a networking event. And by kind of, whether it's talking about our own experiences as grown-ups or through a book and going, well, what do you think the little boy's feeling when he's going into a party? What do you think this panda's feeling about going down that big slide into a swimming pool? Helps them understand that actually it's very normal.
Yeah.
And also what tools are in the toolkit, be it breathing or positive talk or time and lack of comparison. Comparison, I say, as someone who is terribly guilty of it herself.
Yeah, me too.
But I think it's lack of pressure. I don't want to push my kids to anything that's going to make them uncomfortable. However, I do feel like as parents, sometimes we do know what's best. And it's going, you will have a good time. We just need to try.
It's so, because it is such a fine line from pushing too far, but also not pushing enough. And as someone who's always been quite bullish, and I feel anxiety in a very different way, and we'll come on to that, but I've never been afraid to do something. I'm always the first one to put my hand up and jump off the cliff.
And then it's very easy to be like, well, come on,
yes, exactly.
You're gonna have a great time, let's go. And
that's not the best approach for everyone.
It's not, because I think some kids do feel like diminished and going, I don't feel understood by that. But it's very hard when you've got a different personality type, or as you say, if your anxiety show up in a different way, to truly be able to empathise. And I find it very frustrating sometimes when my kids don't want to do something and I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, do you know how lucky you are?
Yeah, exactly.
To go to a party at XYZ or to, but it is a real challenge, especially when you've got different parenting styles in the house.
Exactly, because my eldest is my husband and Isla is me. So it's like chalk and cheese. But have you spoken to anybody on the radio in the past who tackles these topics or has services here that might support?
I really like one big takeaway from Principal Lisa, which is about, she calls it like a magic 20. And it's about naming and framing one-on-one time. Because we know that, we're busy. We can't necessarily have that quantity of time one-on-one, but we can have quality time. I think especially for little ones, naming and framing it. So to go, right now it's our magic 20. 20 minutes where we can do whatever you want. And that might be doing Lego together, doing a project together, playing. It could even be watching TV together. But I found my kids find it really, really helpful. And it becomes quite prized and exciting of, here is this 20 might not be realistic. It might be
Yeah.
magic 10.
Magic 10.
To have it blocked off, have it named, and then they have something that it feels more tangible rather than going, Mum's here, Dad's here, what do you want to do? Going, okay, great. You know, your siblings off somewhere or going somewhere or busy with something else. Shall we have our magic 10 now? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Let them lead with choice and
Love
agency,
this.
because when I think about our kids' lives, especially in the busy seasons, our kids don't have much agency.
No.
It is, we get up at this time, you go to school, your little body is moved from classroom to
Yeah.
classroom, you are on someone else's timeline, and then there's probably an activity, you're being probably served food that you haven't chosen.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only choice they have is, what bedtime story do you want?
Yeah.
So I think about this a lot, especially with our youngest, who is a very strong-willed child, and I love her for it, and I'm really excited to see what she does in adulthood. I've just got to survive parenting it.
Yeah.
It's something. But a few years ago, she said, sometimes I feel like I'm a puppet with no control over her body. And I was like, wow, for a 7-year-old to be able to articulate.
Yeah.
So now there are some things she doesn't have any choice over, because you're going to school, we've signed up for this, we've got obligations, you need to come to the supermarket with me, whatever that might be.
That is
It's life, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. There aren't going to be adjustments
Yeah.
all the way through life.
Yeah.
As lovely as that would be, we would all like that. But to give some choice and agency in the things that aren't as important. If we go out for breakfast, do you want to choose which table we sit at?
Yeah.
What games should we play tonight? So there is this element of choice and confidence.
I like that a lot. I want to pull it back to your working day. So obviously you have been in the industry for a really long time. What does a typical day look like for you, and how has that changed as your kids have got older?
So I think I will probably look back at this time with a lot of fondness, in that I do have more flexibility. So when I was in magazines, it was very much 9 to 6. I was working in monthly magazines, so we would have crazy weeks of different things.
Yeah.
You know, it was the researching, it was the writing, it was the designing, it was the editing, it was the print week, it was the proofing, it was the, Whereas now I have a daily deadline. You know, we have 3 hours of radio every single afternoon. So the show is 1 till 4. So I get up at 6. I have my little morning routine that keeps me somewhat sane. So I do a gratitude journal. I like to do my little New York Times puzzles, and then get up and get the kids ready. We have our amazing nanny Loretta, who's been with us for over 11 years now.
Wow, I love that.
Which I'm sure we will talk about more when it comes to support and, my goodness,
Yeah, don't.
everything that comes
I
with
know.
how privileged we are.
So privileged.
And then get the kids to school at about 7:20.
Nice.
When I tell friends in other parts of the world that,
I know. They're like, what the hell?
absolutely horrified.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's earlier because there might be football or swimming before school. And then I normally have about an hour to exercise, to come home to write, to work on other projects. And then I normally get to the studio around 10. So I basically have an hour of prep per hour of show.
Yeah.
But of course, before that, I'm on my phone and reading emails, I'm reading the news. I'll have approaches on Instagram. I'll have or ideas. You know, I'll see a headline and send it to my producer going, oh my goodness, we should talk about this, or we can bring in this angle. So while I say I get to the studio at 10, the work is actually ongoing constantly. And then, yeah, the show is live 1 till 4. And then I'm lucky enough most days, unless there's a pre-record or a meeting, to be able to get in the car and be home by 5:30.
Great.
For the second job, which,
Yeah.
as you know, everyone knows is the hardest, which is kind of changing gears. Mm-hmm. So I sometimes just have to sit in the car outside the house and go, I'm just going to delete the emails so I haven't got anything hanging over me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to write my quick to-do list for tomorrow, so I'm brain dumping to myself. I send myself a lot of messages on WhatsApp.
Great.
I really do.
That's amazing then.
Just to get it out, and then I try and come home, put the phone away in my handbag until bedtime. So yeah, it's the dinner, it's a bit of the reading together, it might be watching TV, and then the kids are normally in bed by between 7:30 and 8:30, depending.
See, that whole doing a dump before you come into the house, this is what I need to take away, because so often I get home and I'm rushing to get home because I'm like, I want to spend more time with them, but I've still got so much work going on in my head that I'm not present with them. I'm constantly drawn to my phone or my laptop, and then I think, oh, I'll just answer this, And then you get dragged into emails and they're shouting at you and I'm stressed. And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this.
So this is what I learned from when I worked for myself, when I was freelance. It just doesn't suit me because the work is never done.
No.
And for anyone who's listening who is an entrepreneur, a startup, a freelancer, there is always something to do. You're pitching for the work, you're doing the work, you're invoicing for the work, you're chasing the money, you are being creative, and that's really exciting. But there is no end to that work. And I personally found freelancing really lonely. I need people to share with and collaborate with. Yeah. That's something that I've kind of learned about myself over the years, that I do need a bit more structure. And in my life, it's not just like I have the radio, there's obviously social media. I started a business last year around publishing. So there is always something to do. Yeah. But I'm boundaried enough with myself and Jen, the amazing producer of the show, that if I send her an email or I send her an Instagram headline or a story or a guest phone number, she knows that's not something that I want actioned at 9:30 at night. And if she sends me something, I might read it, but I'm not doing it because we have a life beyond what.
Yeah, exactly. And that is very, very important. I wanted to now come on to the ADHD diagnosis.
Which ties in very nicely to the idea of the brain never stopping working.
Well, this has been my biggest thing, and I've spoken about my journey a lot before, but when you went through your diagnosis, it really made me think, gosh, maybe this is something I should look into, because people for ages have been like, have you been tested? Maybe you should consider it. And I was like, no, I grew up with a strong work ethic. My mother is, both my parents, but especially my mother, like the work ethic is mind-boggling, like bizarre. And I was just like, well, that's just what was mirrored to me as a child. So this is why I am the way I am. And I have always, like you said, very much tied my self-worth to how well I do in work, how much money I earn, all that kind of stuff. And I know that is a whole different story, but the brain just doesn't stop. And at the beginning of last year, I was incredibly anxious. Hormones were everywhere, but it wasn't like anxious, worried anxious. It was more just, I was shaking with adrenaline. I was having panic attacks in the car on the way to pick up. Like, it was just big thing. And I was put on Zoloft, which is anti-anxiety medication. And once that kicked in and I slowed down, I was like, whoa, your mind is nuts. I was like, I don't understand like how you have lived like this for so long. And then I really started to understand so much in my life, how hard I am to work with, because no one can keep up with the amount of work I produce within a 24-hour period.
Oh, you're that boss.
I just go. I'm a nightmare to work with. My team who work with me at the agency think I'm scatty as hell. I've always thought I was a very organised person. From the outlook, I look like an incredibly organised person. I am so disorganised. I have no systems. That's why I work best with myself. It's a nightmare. But tell me about your diagnosis and your process.
So it was really interesting because I have had a lot of anxiety. I had pre and postnatal anxiety and again had medication over the years for it as well. But it was around early 2025 where I was having a check-in with my psychiatrist, which I do a couple of times a year, just to be like, where am I? What's going on? A tough couple of years when it came to grief and work and overwhelm. And to be completely honest, I was finding it very, very, very hard to wind down in the evening. And I was probably drinking far more and far more frequently than I should have done. And the only analogy I could give to the psychiatrist was, I just want to put cotton wool in my brain. I just want to slow things down and soften things and let myself relax. And I don't know how to relax. And you hear all of this narrative around, meditation. I do journal and I find that very helpful, but it wasn't helpful enough. So when I said to the doctor, I don't want to be using alcohol as a coping strategy for relaxing, he's like, okay, well, let's look at some anti-anxiety medication, which we did. He's like, I think you just need to take the edge off a little bit. And then sure enough, about 6 months later, we had a reflection. He's like, let's do a little diagnosis. Let's see if there's any ADHD there. And I was like, that's not something I relate to at all, because there's such outdated ideas, which I definitely bought into, of what it looks like, which is this 8-year-old boy on the roof.
Yeah, quite literally.
Whereas at school, I always performed really well.
Really?
Apart from procrastination. So classic would be, I would always want to do the things I was good at. Anything I didn't want to do, I rejected, I pushed away, I procrastinated on, really without worry about consequence. And then the wheels came off at university because obviously I had more freedom to do that. Yeah. And then I think as many people understand, and many women in particular, is when our hormones start to intersect with the masking, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. So I had a couple of tests done. One was around a computer test where you were, clicking on reaction times. And one was my living nightmare, which was being told a series of numbers.
Yes. Words.
And then saying, can you tell me the last 2 numbers I said? Or can you tell me the last 5 numbers? Can you invert those numbers? And I was just, I can't. So it came to light that I have very, high IQ, very quick, processing speeds. Memory, short-term memory, atrocious. And I've always really prided myself on having an excellent memory of faces, almost a bit weird, where I'd bump into someone and I go, oh my goodness, I remember your mum said she was uniforms. And they go, you are a freak for remembering the stuff. And that's changed over the years. And of course, perimenopause is part of that. But it was interesting to think how that intersects with the ADHD. And then, of course, there was interviews, an hour and a half of quite in-depth questions where I had these mini light bulb moments of going, oh, and what's come to light is I am very hard on myself. I always have this narrative of being lazy, of not working hard enough. Why can't I do that? And the way it's been showing up is procrastination. It's things like, I can have stacks of health insurance forms worth thousands of dirhams, and I will just put them aside because I cannot sit down for 10 minutes and do them. And that's not a big deal. But it does add to this idea of, well, everyone else can do it. Why can't you do it? So then it became this idea of, okay, so if I do have this diagnosis, how do I feel about it? And I actually feel pretty neutral about it. And that's what I found really interesting. It says so much about people's reaction. I didn't want to become some advocate of mental health and ADHD. I didn't want to put it in my Instagram bio. I don't want it to be something that I talk about and is a defining feature because it's not necessarily the most interesting part of who I am.
No.
But what has been really fascinating is, much like you're saying, if by raising awareness of some of the symptoms I was having leads somebody to seek more information, to get advice, to have the pills or the skills that makes them feel better, then that's fantastic. To me, it was a bit of a fact-finding mission. I didn't go into that office seeking a diagnosis to validate me, to give me the answers and fix me, nor did I go in there fearful of a diagnosis, fearful of what a label might mean. To me, it's all information. What can I learn about myself to give myself some compassion, to give myself some skills, to make life a little bit easier? And that's what's been really valuable over this last year is it going to be a combination of pills and skills, of medication, of strategies? Are there people like ADHD coaches or psychologists that, can really make a difference? So it's been fascinating, but I've had people message me saying things like, you're so brave to speak out about this, which I don't think I am. I've had people message me going, are you grieving? I'm like, no, not at all. I think had my life taken a different direction and I maybe had a harder time at school, that I did have lower confidence, that I wasn't able to perform, then maybe I would have done.
Yeah.
If there's no counter. I don't know if I was diagnosed as a teenager, then I could be, a billionaire or, whatever.
Life is life.
That's irrelevant to me.
Exactly.
It's just a case of, this is what I'm dealing with now. How can I make life easier? How can I communicate to people in my life? This is how my brain works or perhaps doesn't work. What do I need that might be different to other people? How can I have more empathy for other people's brains and vice versa? And then with my kids as well, what can I identify in them? And it's not about labeling them, but understanding what might be useful.
Yeah, and I think that the understanding element has been the biggest thing for me, being able to understand myself a bit better and go a bit easier on myself, essentially. That has been like day and night. And actually coming back to the, are you grieving it part, I genuinely see it as a superpower. And I'm not, and that sounds extremely corny, but hands down, I would not be where I am today without that element of me. Not a chance in France. I mean, the way I'm wired, what I found is for such a long time, and I was exactly the same as you, as soon as I had kids, the wheels came off, everything went to shit. And it took me until last year, so God, 5 years to get to where I am now. It was a long journey, but honestly, if I give myself space to feel creative, it's amazing what I can get done. Yeah. It's just allowing myself to not just be stuck in my emails all the time or stuck in silly things that don't actually matter.
Do you know what was one of the funny things towards the end of the interview? Because they couldn't give me a formal diagnosis at the time. It was a case of, we're going to go and look at this data, we'll get back to you with a report. But the psychologist said, having spent the last few hours with you and looking at other tests and other conversations from the psychiatrist, she's like, I do think it's very likely that you have ADHD. And I think you'd find it very helpful to seek out groups and conversations, be it online or in person, with other people with the same diagnosis. And I pretty much laughed in her face and said, I just need to look at my best mates, my book club, my colleagues, and go, my kind of benchmark now is, if we get on, you're probably a little bit neurospicy as well.
I like that, neurospicy. Love that.
So that was quite interesting, that I think definitely has a track and that's not to say that one diagnosis is identical to anyone else's, because a very close friend has ADHD as well, and she is incredibly organised. She needs that structure and routine, whereas I think, to borrow your word, my superpower is the ability to juggle. It is the ability to be very adaptable, to not panic. And my goodness, when we've done outside broadcast and there has been a pigeon flying at my face while I'm live on the radio, I'm pretty okay at keeping my calm. So there's two benchmarks. One is, if we get on, you're probably a little spicy. And then, how of course the algorithm serves you all of the ADHD content. I saw a tweet the other day which was like, the final boss level of ADHD test. Have you ever returned an online purchase? Not once. Not once have I returned anything I bought online. But I mean, I really, really haven't. I'm like, it's just not something I'm ever going to do.
It's just not me. It's just not me.
And that's fine.
So we've talked a little bit about boundaries that you've put in place to support. Apart from the medication, are you taking the medication?
I started on Vyvanse, which made me super, super wizzy. I felt like, like I was in a computer game. Yeah. No appetite at all, which was quite strange. Yeah. But then that's evened out, and now I kind of felt like I wasn't feeling any benefit at all. So I recently swapped to Concerta. To be completely honest, I am pretty ambivalent when it comes to meds. I didn't have that revelationary moment. Yeah. So I had a lot of people, actually more men than women, come up to me and say, I see you're part of the club. Congratulations. Well, I love that. Welcome to the club. And I had a couple of men say to me, I took medication and an hour later I cried with relief. Or I never thought my brain or I could work that way. I realised how other people function and the quiet they have in their brain, and I was like, I haven't really had that.
No, to be fair, neither do I.
So I think it's different. I think the hormonal factor is very real for women. I haven't had that. Oh my goodness, my brain is so quiet. I haven't really had that. No. What I have had is a greater understanding of staying on track with conversation, which is very helpful in what I do for work, of utilising when the meds are at the most powerful, which is the morning, for getting things done, and then quite enjoying the drop-off in the evening when my brain feels a little bit more relaxed.
So I'm exactly the same as you, and I have found that it's the focus. It's not been a light and day and night kind of scenario.
I would love that.
The focus has been great. Like now, I remember when we used to do podcast recordings and I would have a co-host, I would be answering emails whilst recording. I couldn't focus on one thing. I was so drawn to doing something else at the same time. Whereas now I can be present in one thing or focus on one thing.
Can I ask you about weekends and productivity and things like that? Because that's something I've always struggled with. And I think my mum is probably a big part of that. My mum is very much like, we don't watch TV during daylight hours. It's the weekend. We have a list of jobs to do. We are bang, bang, bang. And part of my feeling is definitely modelled on that.
Yes.
But I find a huge amount of guilt attached to, I guess, what other people would deem rest.
Yes.
And I'm trying really hard to, just sit in the sun for an hour and read my book at the weekend, to not have a full packed itinerary for the whole 2 days, of feeling like I'm wasting time by not being out of the house. Do you have guilt attached to relaxation or not doing all the time?
Yes, a lot. It's more, so it's two prongs: guilt of not doing something on the to-do list of many things that I should be doing, and guilt of not entertaining the kids. And that has, again, over the last 6 months, massively shifted. And two things I try and do now. This doesn't always happen, and this month I've been particularly bad because I'm behind on a lot of things because I put more on my plate, which is my own fault. But unless there's a birthday party or we've got something special in the diary that we've had for ages, I try to have one day where we make no plans. And we wake up on the day and we see how we feel, and we go and have some breakfast when we want to. Like, we're not on a schedule, we're not rushing. I have never been able to watch TV without being on my laptop.
Okay.
Never. I mean, like for years, I can't even remember the last time I sat and actually watched something. But now I will put my laptop away at 8 and I'll do some form of like skincare. So I'm still kind of doing something, but I'm also more resting.
I struggle with that as well. This idea of second screening.
Oh,
not necessarily a laptop, but I quite like games. So I'll sometimes watch something and play a game.
Oh, really?
But I wouldn't watch something and reply to messages or emails or anything because I'm trying to be really intentional about what I watch. I'm like, okay, this is a compliment. If this is a good show, I want to be in it. And I also am very conscious of sitting next to my husband. Then even though we're just watching TV together, it is a shared experience in some ways. And being on my phone is not really being present. But it is a compliment if I can sit and watch something and not feel the draw of the phone. I think that's not necessarily just an ADHD. I think that's a modern life thing. We are so overstimulated. We're so keen to distract ourselves from discomfort or boredom, and it's never been easier.
No, I find it so hard, and I'm better at this now, but my husband on a Saturday, he'll often be like, when the baby goes for a nap, or whenever a child has gone for a nap in the middle of the day, he'd be like, let's, with the other child, watch a film. And I can't. I actually feel, when you feel so lethargic, you feel a bit unwell. And then I just feel shit for the rest of the day. It's like, when you go for a nap in the middle of the day and you wake up and you're like, I'm so groggy.
See, I have the opposite. My husband will have no problem about watching a movie on a Saturday afternoon and having a little nap on the sofa. I feel like my skin is on fire. If I'm sitting watching TV during the day, I'm like, oh no, this is like, ugh. And also, what shows do you watch during the day?
Who puts a movie on?
This is an evening.
I know. No, I know. No, don't.
It's something that how ridiculous is that I'm trying to work on relaxing during the day, but it's a challenge.
It is hard. And actually, do you know what my therapist said to me? She was like, you have to understand that your husband is not you. If that's his calm and that's his way of relaxing.
Yeah, we can't judge an angry about it.
But it's like, let him do it. Why would you not? It doesn't affect you. If you want to go and do something, go and do something. That's when I go and sit in the sun and read my book. So I'm still kind of doing something, but I'm doing that relaxation thing as well. And the other thing that I haven't quite mastered, but I am going to do it this year, is have one day where I don't have my phone. On a Saturday, no phone. And I'm just going to really try, because I'm always with my husband who has a phone. So if we need maps or something, no one needs to contact me that urgently. I'm always with my kids anyway.
And I think that speaks to such an interesting point, is this idea of our own self-importance. It's like the vast majority of people are not, an emergency cardiologist.
No.
No. We are not that important.
No one needs to contact me on a Saturday.
It shouldn't be radical, but it is.
I'm going to really try, because the less time I spend, if I have one clear day of no social media, no emails, no laptops, no phones, no nothing, I am then reset.
And that feels more manageable.
For sure. Whereas last weekend, for example, I worked Saturday and Sunday a little bit, but I didn't have that rest and break. And I used to use alcohol to do that. So back before I had kids, I would go out and get blind drunk on a Saturday. To the point mostly of blackout, drink for a really long time, but my brain would be dead. And then the Sunday morning would be so hungover, nothing would function. And by Monday, I'd feel great. My brain would feel wonderful.
Yeah, that's not the case.
No.
After kids and into perimenopause.
And the anxiety from drinking.
Well, having just survived dry January, it's been a really interesting self-reflection on the role of alcohol. And that's not to say my husband is alcohol-free, has been for 6 years. I have really good friends who don't drink at all, and I think that's incredible. For me, I am all about self-compassion and moderation. And sometimes that's enjoying a nice glass of wine with a steak.
For sure. I mean, I used to, as I've painted the picture of, be a very big drinker, big binge drinker, let's say.
Very typical and far more common than a lot of people admit, so thank you.
Oh, I think we are the generation of binge drinkers. Our parents' generation were the generation of have a glass of wine every day, and we had, 500 weeks of wine on a weekend, in one day. Not okay. But
And not helpful.
no, but I can't drink. I'm a terrible drinker. I love a drink, but I'll have one or two and then I'll feel dreadful.
That's the thing. I think it's that trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I interviewed Alex Partridge recently, who's an incredible advocate around ADHD, and he talks a lot about the intersection between addiction and ADHD in terms of impulsive behaviours.
Yes.
And it's fascinating.
Really?
So there's a lot of resources out there if that's something that people are worried about.
Interesting. And then just before we move off ADHD, are there any other tools that you've introduced to your life that you found have really helped you manage your days, manage your load?
I mean, Loretta.
Yeah.
It's like that Ali Wong sketch where she's like, think how successful I'd be if I had a wife. And I'm like, I have a wife. I have Loretta. And I think that is a really important thing to acknowledge, especially in this part of the world, especially when people post on Instagram about doing it all, having it all, juggling it all, and when you don't give credit to the people, be that a supportive partner or great friendship group or a nanny helper, then you're really doing that person a disservice, because the person who's looking at your life is probably holding themselves up to a very high standard that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I want everyone to know that I couldn't do what I do if Loretta wasn't making the lunchboxes, or I couldn't go to work without the peace of mind that the kids are with her in the afternoon before I get home from work. So that has been literally the making of me.
Oh,
so it has.
Me too.
So I do have a gratitude journal, which is incredibly cheesy, but it was
Love this.
Dr. Thry, who's a regular on the show, who introduced me to one particular one. So it basically, you do 5 minutes in the morning about 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make, what you're looking forward to, what would make today great, positive affirmation, and then the evening it's like 3 things that went really well, and then 1 thing that you learned. So that's like a little check-in. But honestly, it's so many things that come in. Supplementation, ranting to my best friend, so many things.
Love this. But the help is a big thing. I do agree with that. I mean, we obviously now have 3 kids, and last November we actually got a second nanny, and the difference that has made in my life, because one person can't look after 3 children on their own if I have to go back to work in the afternoon. It's just not physically possible. And both of them, I mean, my first nanny is so much happier because she has help. The new nanny is wonderful, and she also drives, and I'm just like, love you.
You have the
Never leave me.
That's the unicorn.
The unicorn.
So yes, I think it's really important to, 1, acknowledge that help, and 2, understand that we can't do what we do without necessarily.
No, and help is good. We need help. We need help, guys. There's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in getting extra help. There's no shame that I've got 2 nannies. Honestly, if you need 2 nannies, get 2 nannies.
Well, with 2 dogs and 3 kids, Loretta is MVP. We just adopted another dog. We must be out.
Oh, I love it. Do you know what? I would have all the dogs in my life, but my husband's allergic. Allegedly.
Your husband.
Yeah, I know. It would be easier. We've actually been adopted by a cat, and the cat very much now lives in the house, even though my husband doesn't really know that. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Before we start going into our quickfire round, I wanted to ask about your books, because it is now plural.
So I've published 2 children's books. One very much exactly what we were talking about earlier, about anxieties, about children understanding that everybody has a worry, whether you are a teacher or a grown-up. So it's a family who each has their own worry, whether it is the school concert, their first sleepover, mum starting a new job, dad going to a new gym, and them vocalising at dinner what they're worried about, and then the strategies they put in place. My first book came out about 2 years ago, and that was around working motherhood. So these are 2 topics that I wish I had books for when my kids were younger. And I've had so many educators on the show over the years who've said that little ones, you kind of 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, genuinely think their mums and dads sit out the school gate in the car waiting for them to come out. And it's never occurred to them that they might have a life, a job, friends, passions, hobbies outside of parenthood, which is understandable. Kids are these egotistical little monsters. It doesn't occur to them. But I wanted to have a book that helped children understand that mums sometimes do work and why they might do, and that tie back to what we're talking about in terms of identity and purpose, but also, paying for shoes.
Yeah.
Let's be frank.
Yeah.
But also this idea of what could you do? So there were two very purpose-driven stories. And then at the end of last year, I co-founded a company called Storyverse, which is giving the parents the power to create the book that they need. So you can upload a photo of your child, their name, what you need from a story, and that could be a book about their birthday and what they're amazing at. But what's been fascinating through Storyverse is seeing the books that people have created for more therapeutic reasons. So creating stories for their child about starting school and being able to name the school, or about moving to Dubai, or the passing of a pet, or why do we live in Dubai whereas Granny Babs and Papa, and being able to put the name of the grandparents live in another country. So that's been really lovely, because I feel like as parents we're navigating so many difficult topics, and books can literally give you the language to talk about that. And to have a child, I don't enjoy it every night, I'm not a saint, but for most days to have the girls, even at 9 and 11, asking for story time and to be tucked into the nook and to read a book with them about a child that might have a similar struggle, or a child that has something that they can't relate to. We just read a book called The Wrong Shoes, which is about poverty. And to raise questions, I think, is just amazing. So it's been really lovely to go into schools and introduce my books and read to kids who are, as you can imagine, a tough audience a lot of the time, but their ideas for their own characters are amazing. And then with this next chapter, no pun intended, to see the books that parents need.
Yeah.
And to see the reactions of children picking up a book with their own face on, like a beautiful illustration, and for them to see their name in print, for them to understand that what they're going through is normal, or for them to be celebrated on the page, has been amazing.
I love that.
That's
So clever.
One of my big purposes is more reading if you can.
I'm going to definitely check that out. I will link all of this in the show notes as well for anyone who wants to find it.
Great gifts, by the way.
It really is.
I made one for my godson, and he was like, I got a photo of him, and he's like in his little uniform with the name of his school in the book.
Love it.
Yeah, it's just like every kid feeling like a superhero of their own story. It's been lovely.
Quick fire. Are you ready?
I don't think I'm ready for a quick fire.
It's very easy. It's very, very easy. One product you swear by.
Noise cancelling headphones. I think I'm so overstimulated. I wear headphones for work. It is constant noise. It's constant juggle. And after the kids go to bed, sometimes I just put on a podcast, get the Sonos out, and do a puzzle or do some Lego and just shut the world out. Sonos Ace. Best purchase ever.
Coffee or matcha?
Neither. I think they're both disgusting.
What do you have?
Nothing. Water.
Well done.
I have an electrolytes and creatine smoothie slushy in the morning.
Love.
And then a little cheeky Coke Zero before the show.
One habit that makes you feel, start that again. One habit that helps you feel more organised or grounded.
The journaling and the brain dumping.
The brain dumping, I'm taking
So
that.
the notes section in my phone is just a disaster. And then when I realised that I could WhatsApp myself with links, with notes, just get it out of your head. Game changer.
One app or AI tool that makes you feel better about life or helps with life.
That's interesting. I use Insight Timer a lot,
Okay.
which is an app that, with headphones or without headphones, has guided meditations. I can't meditate just like cold. I need to have a guide, or white noise, brown noise, pink noise, binaural beats, because when I'm working, I can't have lyrics, but I also don't like silence. So if there's some kind of noise, that helps me concentrate more.
I'm going to try that as well. One business or motherhood hack that you couldn't live without.
A supportive partner. And I think that is so crucial. Who you choose to spend your life with is such an indication of your health and your wealth. And if you feel safe and supported in your relationship, you feel brave enough to take big steps, and vice versa. It's something I just don't take for granted at all.
Very, very true. Go to wellness ritual that's under 10 minutes.
Can I have 12 minutes?
Yeah.
It is proven that a 12-minute voice note to your best mate is like free therapy. So my best friend Rachel and I send each other voice notes a couple of times a week. I had a record breaker last week. She sent me 23 minutes.
Whoa!
Basically a podcast, Rach. You might as well just start a podcast. But in the same way, she's in a different country. I miss her hugely. I still want to be connected to her life and her kids' life. So to be able to listen to her on the way home, send her 12 minutes back is the way that I feel like me, I feel close to her, and we support each other.
What's the single most powerful thing that's helped you either in your family life or your business life?
You've already said it, asking for help and understanding it's not a sign of weakness.
And last but not least, Helen, for anyone who wants to reach out, find you, where can they find you?
You can find me online, of course, Instagram, Helen Farmer, and I am on the radio every single afternoon on Dubai I-103.8, and I'm just generally out and about, probably more than I should be. So say hi.
And guys, I will link this all in the show notes so you can definitely go and give Helen a little stalk. Helen, you've been incredible. Thank you so much for coming on Mother Tongue.
Thanks for having me back.